Do you want to do a roll call, or shall I just start the meeting and we ask for names then?
Whichever you prefer, Chair. If you want to, I can.
Okay, I'll start and then I'll ask for introduction in a bit.
Yeah,
then.
good.
Right. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's planning control meeting. Just for the purpose of housekeeping, I won't switch my video on yet. So when we go through this, then I will switch the video on. My name is Shiraz Khan. I am the chair of the Planning Control Committee. Obviously, due to the current circumstances and government guidelines, we are sort of forced more or less to hold this meeting online in order to make sure that all planning applications are dealt with as smoothly and as efficiently and quickly as possible. Before we go into the meeting properly, can I ask you all to switch off your mobiles or to put them on silent? Thank you, if everybody's done that. I'm now going to ask everyone to introduce themselves and their position as councillors or officers. I am Shiraz Khan, as I said, Chair of Planning. Next one, please.
Chair, if you want me to, I could read through the list of elected members on the committee that we have that I'm showing as present this evening. Excuse me.
Yes, if you would, Alex. Sorry, Stephen.
Thank you. So, present this evening, I have Councillor Bettany.
Yeah, I'm Councillor Paul Bettany, and I'm a councillor on the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Carr.
Sorry, I'm Councillor Mike Carr, Councillor for Littleover Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr is showing as present, but I'm not sure whether she's having difficulties.
Stephen, it's Stephen Teasdale, legal advisor. Councillor Kerr asked me to report her apologies if she wasn't able to make it tonight or if she was having difficulties connecting. I think she seems to be having difficulties connecting at present.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hassel.
Evening, yeah, I'm Councillor Steve Hassel, Councillor for Allestree Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz.
Yes, I'm Councillor Nawaz, Councillor Gulfraz Nawaz from Arboretum Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Evening, I'm Councillor Jerry Pearce, I'm from Chaddesden Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Pegg.
Yes, Councillor Paul Pegg from Mackworth Ward.
Thank you. Councillor West.
Councillor Joanna West, Councillor for Sinfin Ward and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee.
And finally, yourself, Chair.
Yes, I'm Shiraz Khan, Arboretum Ward and Chair of tonight's meeting. I understand we have an apology from Councillor McChrystal.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, moving on then. The agenda has been circulated, and in recognition of the difficulty of public speakers attending tonight, I have offered those participants the chance to submit their presentation in advance, and these have been circulated to us all. If anyone needs anything, then Stephen is here, please ask him. The meeting will take the usual format, and if I can remind all speakers to unmute your microphones and speak clearly, stating your name each time you speak. Please keep your microphones on mute when you are not speaking. Right, going on to the main agenda. Apologies, we've just declared Councillor McChrystal as apologies. Late item to be introduced by the chair. Well, there are none, but there is a point of information. We have received a letter on behalf of MHCLG which confirms that we can proceed to determine the landmark scheme on Phoenix Street as it is a local issue. Their view has not changed, so we will now seek the signing of the Section 106, which in turn would release the planning permission for the development. Is everyone okay with that?
More than happy,
yes,
Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the way that was. Thank you, Chair. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I'll take care of you, Mike, don't worry. Item 3, declarations of interest, anybody?
No, Chair.
Okay, item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of June 2020, which is attached.
Move it,
Chair.
Can I just raise one point, Chair? At 6119, the late items, Paul Clark told the committee of the sad passing of Helen Oakes. The minutes just refer to a colleague. I'd like to see those amended to reflect her name, please.
Okay, Stephen, will you do that accordingly?
Yep, Chair, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, item 5, minutes of the Conservation Area Advisory Committee held on the 5th of March 2020, which is attached.
Noted. Chair.
Thank you. Item 6, appeals decisions. This will be dealt with by Ian Woodhead as normal. So over to you, Ian, on that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Ian Woodhead. I'm the Development Control Manager. Just 3 items to report. Firstly, 290 Osmaston Road. We had an advertisement application which we refused consent for. It went to appeal. Members will know the building. It stands on the corner of Osmaston Road and Russell Street. Used to be a pub, now a hand car wash. A rather large advertisement panel with what they call a vertical meadow, which is a sort of area of planting beneath it, and we refused it on the grounds of visual intrusion within the street, and the inspector agreed. So that's one victory there. The second item, 138 Blenheim Drive, was a householder extension. They've got an unusual component within it, an arch window. It was a side extension with an arch window. And although the scale of the extension we felt was acceptable, we felt that the feature was just atypical, and we wanted to secure amendments. But the applicant wanted it determined as submitted, so it got refused. It went to appeal, and the inspector agreed. Paragraph 5 of his letter, if you want to refer to that. And the final item, Garage Court Marks Close. Members may recall this came to committee. It was an outline application to redevelop the site, demolish the existing block, build another block with a single apartment above. It was in outline with access only. It got refused permission in terms of access arrangements and character impact on neighbours. The inspector disagreed and felt that it was an acceptable form of development. The access arrangements were okay, and that all the other issues could be addressed at the reserve matters stage. So unfortunately for Councillor Potter, who had a 100% appeal record, that's one against him, but 2 from 3, Chair, so happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Anybody like to ask Ian anything?
Yeah, I'd like to ask about the appeal that was allowed in St Mark's Close. I've had some conversations with Councillor Skelton, who's had one of the local residents quite incandescent with rage about the fact that this appeal is going through. Just like Ian to say, could you put a bit more flesh on the bones, really, Ian, as to why the inspector allowed the appeal? That, you know, from my point of view, our refusal looked okay to me.
Yeah, the decision letter is quite lengthy. I mean, the form of the application, as I say, it's an outline application with access details also applied for. Clearly, the inspector felt that given that our Highways Development Control colleagues raised no objections and that you could reasonably accommodate vehicles into the site, that wasn't an issue for the inspector, and also felt that all the detail relative to the overall scale and form of the development in terms of the first floor accommodation could be reasonably dealt with at reserve matters. It's Yeah, it's worth a read. If Councillor Skelton,
I've read the decision.
Yeah,
because
and
I agree with you. It's quite complicated, actually, the whole issue. But,
yeah, it's one that does raise other issues as well, because clearly the property where the householder runs the Bouncy Castle business has got those unusual access arrangements through the garage block. So it does have an existing unusual arrangement, which the inspector felt would still permit those vehicle movements to that site, and that given that the emergency vehicle, which needed, I think it was 3.7 metres in width, could be accommodated, albeit at a squeeze because it's a 4-metre access, they felt it was okay. So we put a statement together for Councillor Potter to articulate, and that went to the inspectorate, and it was determined under written representation. So the inspector took on board what we said. Councillor Potter and Councillor Pearce had some input, but yeah, we'll just have to take that one on the chin, Councillor Carr.
Okay, I don't think we've heard of the last of that one, but let's
possibly not.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Right. Moving on to item 7 then. Applications to be considered today. The first one is on pages 1 to 9, 149 Almond Street, Derby, and Ian is going to tell us about that one.
Thank you, Chair. It's Ian Woodhead, Development Control Manager. In terms of this report, housekeeping items, nothing of any substance to report, but a reminder that the comments of the Highways Officer in the report are in relation to the original 10-bedroom proposal. There were no objections to the original submission subject to conditions, and the reduced scheme is now for 8 bedrooms, so that's just worth bearing in mind. My colleague Chris Thorley is also on the call if you need some highways clarification. On to the main report, Chair. The application seeks full planning permission to use this detached residential property for a large-scale house in multiple occupation, or HIMO, and the revised proposal would accommodate, as I say, 8 bedrooms. Your report addresses the issues about the potential impact of this on the character, appearance and living conditions of neighbours and those living nearby. You'll be very familiar with these applications, Chair, and members have assessed a variety in the past, and your report also details the appeal decisions at 7 Pelham Street and the one at Brighton Road. As your report states, each application needs to be determined on its own planning merits, and in this case the scheme has been given careful consideration, leading to the negotiation and submission of the revised proposal. The property stands at the junction of Almond Street and Crewe Street, and it is an imposing detached property with a ground to first floor bay window on the left hand side of its front elevation. The property has stone headers and sills around its front elevation windows, and the hipped roof has overhanging eaves which all contribute to the building's character. A flat roof dormer extension occupies part of the front roof plane. The proposed external alterations to the elevations of the building are small scale, and in my opinion the provision of amenity space at the rear would improve living conditions for residents within an area that is currently devoted to off-street parking. The reconfigured floor layout to create 8 bedrooms would involve 3 provided at ground level, 4 at first floor level and 1 in the roof space, which is served by the existing front dormer. The original proposal sought to accommodate 2 units in the roof space, and we negotiated that back to 1 unit, covering approximately 20 square metres of internal floor space. Given the size of the property, Chair, and the provision of natural daylight and outlook to all rooms, I am satisfied that the proposal would provide a good standard of living for all occupants. Clearly, the proposed intensification of the residential use would have some impact on neighbours and those living nearby, but in my opinion and judgment, this would not be so significant as to justify a refusal of permission. As members will be aware, a lawful permitted development change to a 6-bedroom HIMO could be implemented, and therefore that is a fallback position which must be considered when arriving at any decision. The objections from neighbours and others are noted and have been carefully assessed, and the revised proposal has, in my opinion and judgment, struck the right balance in this case. Chair, I promote the recommendation and welcome Councillor Jahangir Khan to address committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Jahangir Khan, you have 3 minutes to address the committee.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd just like to highlight some of the bits from the report. 149 Almond Street, 4-bedroom house, been converted into 8-bedroom house. And the issue, can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Jahangir.
Yes, Jahangir, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think planning office has been approached by residents. I have had a number of meetings with them. They're very much concerned due to coronavirus. We could not get people down there. People would have been willing to fill the gallery up. They're so much concerned about the 8-bedroom MHO housing, 8-bedroom. So I think the issue there has been fly tipping on the corner of Crew Street and in Almond Street. And I'm very familiar with this property, and the concerns of antisocial behavior just across Ash Place, and nuisance, litter, fly tipping, and parking is a big issue. Yeah, and converting this to 8-bedroom, and in the report it says 70% of the occupant will be owning a car or a vehicle. Yeah. So I don't know how this recommendation made by Ian saying this should be converted into 8-bedroom and the permission should be granted. And the residents are so much concerned already in that part of my ward that parking is a big issue, and they're even not sure how this is going to be let out. And it's a big concern. So I don't know in future, is this going to be let out as 8-bedroom house, or is it going to be converted to a guest house or what? Yeah. So I've been number of times been approached. Today I've been approached by the residents that if they could get involved or liaise with you, come to the meeting or speak to, I don't know if they recently spoke to the officer or not, but that's the concern in that part of my ward. So I'm also myself against the planning permission on this property, and parking is a big issue, as you know, in Normanton. I think, Chair, recently parking has raised the issue, I don't know, everywhere around Normanton, and I still feel that parking, antisocial behavior, fly tipping.
Okay, thank you, Jahangir. I'm afraid your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just remind everybody to put their cameras on when speaking? Thank you.
Okay, would you like to come back on any of them issues, Ian, before I pass it to the committee?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's Ian Woodhead, Development Control Manager. Just to say that I appreciate the concerns of Councillor Jahangir Khan. In terms of the parking issue, that's something that Chris Thorley can pick up on. In terms of the layout, I mean, it is a very attractive, sizable property, and the revised proposal, we've negotiated down from 10, as I say, to 8 bedrooms, and all rooms do benefit from natural daylight through at least one window. I mean, the ones with that are served by the rather attractive full height bay, they've got 3 windows. There's a unusual sort of projecting box window at the back at first floor level that serves bedroom 4. And as I say, the bedroom at second floor level in the roof space, thank you, James, that covers about 20 square meters and is served by a dormer. So we feel that in terms of the layout, we've my colleagues negotiated a good scheme, in addition to the fact that the area at the rear, which is currently devoted mainly to parking of vehicles, there is an amenity space there as well, together with some parking spaces and provision for bin storage and cycle parking. So I think the revised scheme is an improvement and can be supported. And I note that Councillor Khan also raised issues about antisocial behaviour and fly tipping. Well, clearly this is a proposal, and if those existing conditions prevail, then this is obviously not something to do with the development. But on its planning merits, I feel that this revised proposal is acceptable. It meets housing standards, and as I say, my colleague has negotiated this for some period of time. So I'd hand over to Chris Thorley if he wants to make any comments as well, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In common with other applications of this type, the National Planning Framework Policy says that I can only ask for refusal if the proposals are a significant impact or a safety implication. Unfortunately, the 2 to 3 extra vehicles that may be brought to the site as a result of that, we wouldn't be able to defend an appeal. We wouldn't be able to argue that that causes a safety or capacity issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Shiraz Khan, Chair again. Members of the committee, anybody wish to speak on this?
Yes, please, Chair.
I've got Councillor Paul Pegg first of all, then Councillor Kerr as well, wishing to speak.
Thank you, thanks, Chair. Well, everybody knows my opinion on HMOs. Again, I'm totally against them. I'm against it. The traffic in that area is horrendous. You're going to get 8 additional cars parked there. Doesn't matter what anybody says. And I don't think we as an organisation have now got to start looking at this very seriously, because it's affecting all wards basically, where there's terraced housing and so on and so forth. I know what the legal requirements are. I hear them every time. But my opinion still does not change. We cannot keep having these properties turned into 8 bedrooms, because it is getting to a saturation point. And I'm against it. I'm happy to go to appeal or whatever, but I'm definitely against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Who was next indicating to speak?
Councillor Kerr, I believe, Chair, and then Councillor Nawaz.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes, I'm Councillor Kerr. I'm one of the members of the committee. I agree in many ways with what Councillor Pegg's just said, because we have a real problem, and the main problem here is the traffic, and we're not dealing with it, I think, well as an authority. I would like us to be able to say we need to let something like this be a catalyst to provide a better solution for the whole area. And I see that as being the co-wheels or other car club sort of system, so that we could use an application like this and presumably have a Section 106 agreement and say, right, because of you're bringing more people in, it's going to add to the pressure of cars. We want to take one space, which could even be an on-site space, and have there a car that anybody in the area would be able to book and use. And experience shows elsewhere that people do that. They give up ownership of their own car, and it's actually more cost effective and less congestion to be able to use that car club car. Is there any way that we can do that? Can we require that as a condition in an application like this, that it actually provides some mitigation and it reduces the problem in the area rather than adding to it?
Stephen.
So that's the first question. May I do the second question as well? Yeah, okay. which is that as well as the cars there, people also drive by car to visit people. So because you've got more people in that area, and because it's going to be effectively 8 households, not just one household, there are likely to be more people wanting to drive or otherwise travel to reach that location. And if you are coming by bicycle, which obviously I would hope that people are, there is actually no convenient place to park, because it'll be you won't be able to get to the designated cycle parking within the site. Lampposts aren't usually wide enough for good locks to go round, and there isn't an alternative. So again, is that something that we can address, or we can expect to have happened in London? They have clamp-on systems that provide accessible locking onto lampposts for bicycles. Is that something that would be permitted here? Thank you.
Hello, Chair. Hello. Chair.
Stephen, would you like to come in?
Yes, Chair. It's Stephen Teasdale, the legal advisor. I think it would be very difficult to justify a condition in terms of car sort of sharing, in terms of the application for a HIMO. Very difficult. Well, I don't think you could justify that in relation to this particular case. The clamping side probably is better addressed by Ian, but if it's actually clamping on street, it's really something outside of the control of the applicant. So I think that would be a very difficult one to justify as well. I mean, I appreciate that they are quite sort of inventive solutions to problems, but I think you've got, in terms of the car specifically, you've got to look at the nature of this development, and I think it just wouldn't be justified. Ian can comment as well on that point. I think the clamping, if it's clamping system that is on street, I think, and there has been cases in relation to car usage and car parking on streets, I think that would fall foul as well. I don't think that would be possible to justify directly, unless, I mean, it may be possible to sort of have some financial sum payable to the council to provide street furniture or something to that degree. I mean, sort of like you'd have maybe sort of contribution towards cycle provision on street, but again, I don't know whether that would be justified in this particular case.
Thank you, Stephen Teasdale there. Ian Woodhead, would you like to add anything to this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's Ian Woodhead, Development Control Manager. The amended site layout does include space for two car parking spaces, a place for cycle parking, and waste and bin storage. As Stephen's indicated, there's no policy basis for the co-wheels solution. It's a laudable aspiration, but there's nothing in the development plan thus far to attach a condition to in terms of the policy basis. And as Stephen's indicated, we have the on-site provision for cycle parking. Anything beyond that is beyond the applicant's control and would actually be something to, more of a corporate pursuit of improved cycle parking facilities within the city in general. So I would say, in the context of this application, which has its own site layout and floor plans, I think we've got the reasonable provision for on-site car parking, on-site cycle parking, and on-site bin storage. So that, combined with the amenity garden of about 75 square metres, I think is an acceptable use of that external space. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Shiraz Khan again, the Chair. Any other member of the committee?
We've got Councillor Nawaz has indicated he wishes to speak.
Councillor Nawaz.
Yeah, it's Councillor Gulfraz Nawaz. Just to come back onto the parkings, it's such a nightmare parking around that area. I regularly go past there. The giveaway next to the the house is so bad. There's been many accidents there, and you're telling me 70% of the people are going to have the cars, and where they're going to park. Already the residents wanted they wanted residence parking at one time, but they got refused. I don't know why. And I think it's totally wrong to have such a big property, and 8-bedroom flats is totally wrong, and I'll be voting against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shiraz Khan, Chair. Anybody else?
Councillor West, Chair, wishes to speak.
Councillor Joanna West.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Stephen. I think we have this problem every time, don't we? And we look in the report and we can see two similar properties, as Ian has already mentioned, the Old Steam Mill at Pelham Street and 135 Brighton Road, where the committee had the same feelings as I think they do tonight. One that went through at appeal and one that didn't. I think the parking is an issue that needs to be addressed going forward, and some of the suggestions that Lucy's had tonight I think are really interesting and are maybe worth looking into to see what can be done in terms of future applications. But I think the wording that we had for Pelham Street, sorry I'm peering at my papers, was dismissed on appeal on the grounds that the nature of the street was such that the likely increase in activity would harm residential amenity and the character of the area to an unacceptable degree. And I think it's that harmful of residential amenity. Parking, we can guess how many cars will come to the property. We can guess how much of a nightmare that will be for people trying to visit the property, people who live there trying to park, people who already live nearby who won't be able to park and will be dispersed further on. But I think it's that harm to residential amenity that we need to consider in this case, and say that actually we need to keep this house as a house. We certainly don't need to be changing it to an 8-roomed HIMO, and as others have said, I can't support this application either.
Thank you, Councillor West. Anybody else? Okay, well, my own view is this, that 4 bedrooms are being added to a 4-bedroom house. Will that change the nature of the street? Yes, it will. Will it affect the day-to-day lives of the people there? Will it bring antisocial behavior, extra parking issues, noise, whatever? Yes, it will. And what I can't sort of seem to understand is that, you know, developers want to make money. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it should be suitable developments, as we keep saying in these committees. This could have been turned into 2 flats, you know, for families, rather than having 8 people come to a street with this problem already. Now, those people that are going to be going there probably won't know the nature of the area, because we obviously know that when houses in multiple occupation, you don't get working class people or too many of them. There are various issues. They're coming from halfway out, this and that. So they won't know the problems that are associated with that. And they will walk into a situation and exasperate it further by having another 8 vehicles, having people come to visit them, standing outside smoking or having a chat. And yes, the lives of people will be affected. Now, Councillor West mentioned Pelham Street. Now, if you remember, I was very sort of vehemently against that, and we turned it down on the grounds that it would affect the lives of these people. Now, it went to appeal. You know, we won the appeal. From what I understand now, the developer is actually asking the residents around Pelham Street and Spring Street as to what type of development could go there that they would be happy with. And I think that's the way forward for developers and for us as a committee to look at things and say, would we be happy with something like this in our street? And if we are not happy with it, then why are we imposing it on other people? And my view is that this is a lovely house. I've driven past it many times. There was a family living there. In the past, they've had a mixture of children and adults there. And now there's 8 adults going to be added to this house. And it will be a blight on the lives of the people living there. And I you know, agree with the sentiments of everybody here that we as a city should be saying, look, yes, we want development, right development, not affecting the daily lives of our residents. Would anybody else like to comment? If not, can we move to a vote? Stephen?
Hi, Chair. I'm just going to paste that wording in now so that it's... I hope I'm pasting in the right thing here.
I think it's already on there, Stephen. I think Councillor Joanna West put it on.
I'm just
Lindsay Stevens has put it on as well.
That's okay. I'm just doing it so it's right in front of all the members, Chair. So I'm presuming, I'm sure Stephen Teasdale will confirm that the members will just speak on this before making their vote, and I'll go through the members alphabetically.
Yeah, Stephen Teasdale, legal advisor. Yeah, I confirm that, Stephen. Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, Chair, I'll go through the members alphabetically then. Excuse me, let me just start my camera. Stephen Mason, Democratic Services, excuse me. Right, okay, first of all, Councillor Bettany, please.
This is Councillor Paul Bettany speaking. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application, and I understand the material planning considerations in this case, and I vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
I'm Councillor Lucy Kerr, and I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation and discussion for this application, and I understand the material planning considerations in this case, and I vote against the recommendation because of the existing density of population in this area.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr, please.
Hello, I'm Councillor Mike Carr. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application, and I understand the material planning considerations in this case, and I abstain from voting.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Hassel, please.
Hi, I'm Councillor Steve Hassel. I can confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application, and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application, and I understand the material planning consideration in this case. I vote against the application.
Against. Thank you. Councillor Pearce, please.
Councillor Jerry Pearce, I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application and understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
Councillor Paul Pegg, are you there?
Sorry, my mic went off. I do apologise. Councillor Paul Pegg, I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application, and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote against the application.
Thank you, Councillor Pegg. Councillor West, please.
I think you may have missed Councillor. Oh no, sorry. Sorry, Stephen. Yes, Councillor West. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application, and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote against the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor West. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Councillor Shiraz Khan, I can confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application, and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote against the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, I have 2 votes for, 6 against, and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Stephen. That application is refused. Mr. Teasdale, perhaps you would like to guide us through the legal issues now.
Yes, I think it's really, Chair. Sorry, Stephen Teasdale, the legal advisor. I'll just put my camera back on. Hopefully it works. Hopefully I'm back on. Yes, I think, Chair, we need to come up with reasons for a refusal, presuming that committee wishes to refuse it. So I think sort of a discussion on justification for the refusal might be useful. I think Ian may well be able to assist in terms of determining reasons.
Ian?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's Ian Woodhead, Development Control Manager. Whilst the debate was ongoing, I did use the opportunity to pen a reason for refusal. And would you like me to read that out to you?
If you would, please.
It goes along the lines of, in the opinion of the local planning authority, the proposed conversion of this property to an 8-bedroom house in multiple occupation, sui generis, would create, by virtue of the general disturbance and activity associated with the use, including additional vehicle movements to the site, an unacceptable intensification of the residential use, which would be detrimental to the residential amenities enjoyed by neighbours and others who live nearby. Therefore, the proposal is contrary to Safe Policy GD5 of the adopted City of Derby Local Plan Review and the overarching guidance in the National Planning Policy Framework, which seeks to protect the amenities of those affected by the development of land and buildings. How's that?
Thank you. That's fine. The only thing from my point of view I'd like to add, and that was that if we could put there, what sort of other HMOs are close proximity to this particular application as well. Anybody else wish to comment?
Please, Chair.
Yes.
It's Councillor Lucy Kerr. Can we emphasise in our statement that this is an area of high density, a high density area already? So we're talking about what is already a busy area and making it busier. And I think that that's a factor which I don't think comes out quite strongly enough in what you've put. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, Lucy, and perhaps Ian can incorporate that into the reasonings.
Yes, it's Ian Woodhead, Development Control Manager, Chair. I'll knit that in. I'll say something along the lines of an unacceptable intensification of the residential use, which would be detrimental to the residential amenities enjoyed by neighbours and others who live nearby in an already congested residential area.
Sure, congested is the best word, but something along those lines, yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. High density, whatever. And it's also the lack of opportunity space. There isn't lots of, there isn't a park around the corner or sort of incidental spaces around. It's just highway and housing and small gardens. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Kerr. It's Ian Woodhead again, Development Control Manager. Would you also, Chair, like me to include an informative note along the lines of the committee would welcome the developer to engage in discussions with local ward councillors to determine the best possible use of this building, something like that?
Yes, I think, as I said in my remarks earlier on, that would be probably the best way to go forward. And as the developers of Pelham Street have done, they should engage with local councillors and the residents.
Chair, Stephen Teasdale, a legal officer, just coming in. If members are happy with what Ian has suggested, subject to your amendments and Councillor Kerr's amendments, do you want to proceed and put that, ask for somebody to propose and second that, and if it's seconded, it move to the vote on that?
Okay, would somebody like to propose that?
I'll propose it, Chair.
Would somebody like to second that?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Okay, can we move to the vote then? And Stephen will do the necessary etiquette.
I'll do the honours, Chair. I'll just move through the committee members alphabetically. Councillor Bettany, please.
Yes, I vote in favour of that.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
I vote in favour of the refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Carr?
Those words are acceptable to me. Yes, I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
Aye, Councillor Hassel, yeah, I vote in favour, that's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz?
Yeah, I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce?
I'll just get my video on. Yes, I vote in favour of that refusal. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
Yes, I vote in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor West?
Thanks, Stephen. Yes, also in favour of that.
Thank you. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Yes, Stephen, Councillor Shiraz Khan, I'm in favour.
Thank you. So that's unanimous, Chair.
Chair, Stephen Teasdale, legal officer again. Just need to have a volunteer to appear at any appeal on this, or deal with any appeal on this.
Councillor Pegg, did I hear you volunteer?
Yes, yeah, I'm more than happy.
Okay. That's sorted then, Stephen. What else do we need to do?
That's fine. You can move on to the next item, I think.
Okay then, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is, if I can remember it, Ian will be introducing it to us. Ian?
Thank you, Chair. It's Ian Woodhead, Development Control Manager. In terms of the housekeeping items for this application, members will note the submission of a late supporting statement by Indigo Architecture and an email of support from a neighbour. Both were circulated by email yesterday. Secondly, part 7.2 on page 15 of your report deals with the proposed replacement trees that would be planted to compensate for the loss of the protected but diseased eucalyptus tree that would be felled to accommodate this development. I can confirm that the council's arboricultural team have a schedule of works to plant 2 lime trees in the verge outside numbers 129A and 129B Manor Road. Although these replacement trees are not on site, they would be situated in a highly visible location nearby, and I am satisfied that this is a reasonable solution. This replanting, Chair, is secured by means of Section 106 agreement as outlined in Part 8.5. On to the main body of the report. The application seeks full planning permission to erect a detached single-storey residential dwelling on this site, which occupies a backland position on Middleton Avenue. As your report states, vehicle access into the site would be obtained via the existing driveway serving numbers 44, 46 and 46A Middleton Avenue. This particular development was granted permission back in 2006, and it forms a pleasant courtyard setting behind the main street frontage. The layout, as amended during the life of the application, shows a detached 2-bed dwelling with a rectangular footprint measuring some 13 metres by 11 metres, situated in an almost central position within the plot. The footprint of the property would be set some 6 metres from the eastern site boundary and some 8.5 metres from the western site boundary. The proposal would be single storey in height and would have a traditional dual pitch roof measuring some 3 metres to the eaves and some 6 metres to the ridge. Proposed materials of construction are brick, tile and render. As I say, Chair, to facilitate the development, the applicant is also seeking permission to remove the protected eucalyptus tree located along the northern site boundary. Your report addresses the main issues, and I'm satisfied that in this context, where other backland dwellings prevail, the proposal, as amended, is a reasonable form of development in terms of its impact on the character and overall appearance of the immediate area. The proposed external design is a traditional form, and there are no defensible reasons to object to such architectural style in this varied street scene. The proposal would have some impact on adjoining neighbours as a result of the creation of an additional built form, but given that the dwelling is single-storey in scale and reasonable boundary treatments can be secured to protect neighbouring occupiers, I am satisfied that any impact would not be so injurious to warrant a refusal of permission on residential amenity grounds. As I say, Chair, the proposed arboricultural issues have been satisfactorily addressed during the life of the application, and I am satisfied that the additional tree reports and advice from our specialist advisors have informed the application and generated an acceptable solution for tree planting in the local area. The objections from neighbours and others are noted and have been carefully assessed, and the revised proposal has, in my opinion and judgment, struck the right balance in this case. Chair, I promote the recommendation and there are no speakers. Many thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Does anybody wish to speak on this or to add anything? If not, can we move to the vote? Somebody?
Chair?
Sorry, yes.
Chair. I'm Councillor Lucy Kerr, and I'll start by saying that my father lives in a property not adjoining this site, but within sight of the eucalyptus tree that would be lost. And I'm obviously sad that a tree like that would be going, but it's not something I've discussed with him. He hasn't raised it with me, and I'm not treating it in any special way as a result of him being able to see the tree. I think it's sad that the tree's going, but I think there's a lot of other infill property in this area. I think that the size of this particular scheme is acceptable in that location, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Anybody else? Somebody recommend to the vote?
Move to the vote, Chair.
Okay. Mr. Mason, would you like to do the honours?
Chair.
Chair.
Sorry,
well,
Chair.
Stephen.
Sorry, Stephen. It's
okay.
Stephen Tisdale, legal officer. Chair, nobody's actually seconded the recommendation.
Okay. Will somebody like to second that?
I'll second that. Chair, please.
Well, there you go. We got second, third, and fourth now. Stephen, you can carry on.
A chorus of approval. Right. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, please.
I'm Councillor Lucy Kerr, and I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case, and I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, please.
Hello, I'm Councillor Mike Carr. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case and I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
Hi, Councillor Steve Hassel. I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour of the application.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, please.
Councillor Jerry Pearce, I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application and understand the material planning considerations in this case and I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
Councillor Paul Pegg, I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour of the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor West, please.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Joanna West, I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Shiraz Khan. I can confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning consideration in this case and I vote in favour of the application.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I have that unanimous in favour.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Moving on to the, well, that application is permitted, and we move on to the next one, which is on your papers. It will be pages 22 to 31, 48 Leecroft Road, and to tell us about this is Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Sarah.
Perfect. Yeah, this is application 48 Leecroft Road. It's another house of multiple occupation. My name is Sarah Claxton. I'm Development Control Team Leader. There are no housekeeping items for this application. The proposal is for a change of use of a mid-terraced Victorian dwelling to a 7-bedroom house in multiple occupation, or HIMO, with extensions to the rear of the dwelling and a dormer extension in the roof. The property lies on a residential street of similar terraced houses in Normanton. The house currently has 3 bedrooms and is proposed to form a 7-bedroom HIMO with 2 bedrooms on the ground floor, 4 bedrooms on the first floor, and a studio bedroom unit at the second floor in the roof. The proposal includes a single-storey rear extension with removal of existing bay window and store, which comprises of a small flat roof extension and provides large communal and living space for the occupants. Flat roof dormer extension is also to be formed on the rear elevation, with 2 roof lights to be formed in the front. These works in themselves would all be permitted development extensions if it wasn't for the fact that it's part of an application for conversion to a HIMO. We've received a total of 43 objections to this application, including one from Councillor Hussain. These are set out in section 4 of the report. The main concerns raised are related to the potential increase in parking problems in local streets for residents as a result of the increased occupation of the property. Other concerns are the proposal would be out of character and excessive in scale and result in loss of amenity for local residential properties. In terms of the parking impacts of the more intensive use, the Highways Officer acknowledges that on-street parking congestion already exists in local streets in this area. However, there are no objections raised to the proposed use on the basis of additional traffic generated would not result in severe impact on the local road network or unacceptable impacts on highway safety. And this is having regard for guidance in the MPPF. A condition to secure cycle parking provision is also recommended by the Highways Officer, and Chris Thorley is at the meeting and I'm sure can advise on highways and parking impacts. In terms of the increased occupancy, change from a 3-bedroom house in C3 use to a small HIMO for up to 6 people living together would be a permitted change which does not require permission. So as such, in this proposal is for 7 bedrooms with communal space and kitchen space. The increase in occupancy is one additional bedroom over and above what would normally be allowed under permitted development. This we feel is a material consideration which needs to be taken into account, and the impacts of the additional bedroom on the wider residential area are considered to be limited in terms of their character of the area, residents' amenity and on public safety. The Housing Standards team have raised no objections to the HIMO use, subject to a licence. They're happy with the room sizes, general living layout, which they feel would meet their overall standards. So in planning terms, we're happy that the proposal would form a high quality living environment, which would provide a reasonable standard of amenity for the occupants, and a garden at the back, which should provide outdoor amenity space. Amenities of the neighbouring residents would not be reasonably affected by the design or form of the extensions which are proposed. The extensions are modest in scale and will not cause undue massing or loss of privacy. So overall, the change of use of the dwelling to a 7-bedroom HIMO and small rear extensions would not, in our opinion, result in harm to the character of this residential area by reason of its more intensive use or the increased demand for parking in the local streets. The report sets out 4 other known properties in this street which are occupied as HIMOs or flats, and the report also refers to a similar application on Brighton Road which was dismissed on appeal. So overall, we feel the proposal would accord with the intentions of the local plan policies in terms of design, amenity and highway impacts, as well as overarching guidance in the MPPF. So we're recommending it for approval subject to the recommended conditions, and you have no speakers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris, would you like to add anything to it?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chris Thorley, Highways Development Control. I've been out to the site on 3 occasions as it happens, and I have seen for myself what parking is like there. Unfortunately, we go back to the NPPF again, which tells me that I cannot ask for refusal unless there's a safety issue or a significant impact on the highway. And it is our view that we would not be successful in trying to argue that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now, before I sort of pass on to members' comments, I just want to give you a brief outline of this particular road. The pavements have been lowered on this to accommodate cars so that they can pull up onto people's front gardens. Initially, some time ago, they had problems with parking on both sides, and refuse lorries were struggling to get past these, and were having to take into Catherine Street or Augusta Street. Now, in my view, and this is purely my own opinion, this is the sort of development that we don't want to see happening here. A 3-bedroom, mid-terraced family home being converted to 7 bedrooms with multiple occupancy, and it's not just, we're not just talking about 6 bedrooms doesn't need. This is asking for extensions to blight an area that already suffers from antisocial behavior, parking issues. Yes, we may not think that there's parking material consideration, but it is to the people that live there. Now, parking issues are there. We've had issues of gangs operating at the bottom of this particular road on near where the Shaftesbury estate is. Everything you can think of that doesn't favour this application exists here. I don't see how we can impose 7 people of various ages or jobs or unemployment onto this particular street and think that it's okay. How can it be okay to have this kind of development going on? As I said, it's a mid-terraced 3-bedroom family home, and we're trying to convert it into a 7-bed multiple occupancy and think that it won't affect the people's lives there. Yes, it will affect that. And you only have to look at the statistics being put forward by government on the COVID-19 areas, that people in ethnic minority areas have suffered more infections and more fatalities than anywhere else. And this is to do with unsuitable accommodation, some people, overcrowding, and we're exasperating the situation by bringing something like this. Again, I find it hard to put into words this kind of frustration I have of this. Developers see us as an easy touch. They can just say, well, we'll put one here and it'll get passed. As I've said to you many times before, it's about time we as a committee and we as authorities said, we are open for business, suitable and good business, not any and every business. That's it. We are here ultimately to look after the interests of our citizens. And not opposing applications like this would, in my opinion, and that's my opinion only, would be a dereliction of my duty to say, well, yes, I'll accept this in my ward when I know the kind of sufferance that the people are having to put up with already. If we, we're not saying to investors, we don't want your money. Yes, we want your money. We want investment. We want housing. But it has to be the right investment, the right housing in the right areas. There are loads of areas where investors can develop this type of thing, but because they want to invest little and gain a lot, this is the type of accommodation looking and thinking that it will get approved. I'm sorry, but as I said to you, it's about time we as this committee, well, who knows who'll be here next year, whether it'll be me or Steve as chair or 9 other people, but we must in our own heart of hearts think to ourselves, would we like to do this to our friends, our residents, our neighbours. And if we can say no to that, then we should be saying no to applications like this, and we should put out a strong message to all the investors who are looking to come and make money in Derby, invest money in Derby, which we welcome. But right money, right investment, right time. Thank you. And next, who would like to speak?
Chair, I have Councillor Kerr indicating to speak, followed by Councillor Carr.
Councillor Kerr?
Yes, I'm Councillor Kerr, and I agree with so much of what you've said, Chair. And I actually think that the layout of the rooms in this example of a HIMO are actually less attractive than the one we saw earlier. But it does have more outside space that's not now being given over to car parking. You know, I think if somebody living in one of these at the time as lockdown started a couple of months ago, it's a pretty closed in and narrow existence, isn't it? But there is that bit of a garden, and for me that bit of a garden that this property has is actually what saves it. That plus the fact that we're actually only adding one property more than it actually wouldn't need to go to planning at all, and I can't see that it would be a refusal here would be upheld at appeal. My previous comments about how we ought to be managing parking and car ownership here, how we need to have cycle parking, and I don't know how the cycle parking is going to be managed here. And it needs to be incidental cycle parking as well as those who live here. And those need solutions. But on this occasion, I don't think we stand a cat in hell's chance of winning at appeal. So I will support this, but I don't like it, if that makes sense. We need to change our housing standards, and we need to change the expectations. We need to do something about what our local plan says about intensification of housing in areas where we already have dense housing.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr, but I'd just like to add that if they were applying for it as a 6-bed, they wouldn't be asking for the extensions to the roof and at the back, so that would be totally different. We're not looking at a room being added to this, we're looking at an HIMO being put into a terraced house. Sorry, who's next?
Is that me, Chair?
Yeah, go on.
Right, well, I'm going to argue against myself now. I agree with a lot of what you, Chair, said and what Lucy's saying. The problem for me is I feel conflicted. It's the same with the argument that in the previous one on Almond Street. The National Planning Policy Framework frustrates us here, and I've always been reluctant to go against officers' recommendations when the National Planning Policy Framework, because I figure in the end we'll probably lose. And I agree with what Lucy said, we'll lose. I also think we'll probably lose on the Almond Street one. But we need to make a point, which is where you come in, Chair, that the National Planning Policy Framework and our local plan is frustrating these things. I feel very, very, very conflicted. So on this occasion, I am going to vote against the recommendation, although I feel we will probably lose. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Anybody else?
Move to the vote, Chair.
I think Councillor Bettany was typing a message in there.
Councillor Nawaz, Chair, has just indicated he wishes to speak, and followed by Councillor Bettany.
Right. Councillor Nawaz first, please, then.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm quite familiar to this property, and mainly families are living here, and they don't need this HIMO here. Parking is the biggest issue around here. Antisocial behaviour will go up as it is there already, and you know, I don't agree with this going ahead, and I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Bettany.
Thanks, Chair. I'm really uncomfortable with these extensions in terrace houses and everything. I know that's no reason to go against it, but I think the impact on the local people and the residents around there and the more intense population that comes in, I think we're making people's lives, I think we're blighting their lives that's already living there, and I for one will be voting against it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Anybody else? Would somebody like to move to the vote?
Move to the vote, Chair.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Stephen, up to you again to do the honours.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Give me a second. Right, here we go. Councillor Bettany, please.
I vote against.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Lucy, are you awake?
Sorry, I forgot. I was looking for the words. I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case, and I vote in favour.
This is Councillor Bettany. I didn't read the words out. Would you like me to do it again and vote again?
Well, please, Councillor Bettany, that would be... Thank you very much.
My name's Councillor Paul Bettany. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case, and I vote against the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Carr, please.
Hello, my name's Councillor Mike Carr. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case and I vote against.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
Hi there, Councillor Hassel. I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote against the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote against the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, please.
Councillor Jerry Pearce, I confirm that I have been present throughout this presentation for this application and I understand material planning considerations in this case. I vote against the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
Councillor Paul Pegg, I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case and I vote against the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor West, please.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Joanna West. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote against the recommendation.
Thank you. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Shiraz Khan. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning consideration in this case. I vote against the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have 1 vote for and 8 against.
Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Teasdale, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Stephen Teasdale, Legal Officer. I think, again, we probably worth passing to Sarah to perhaps discuss and sort of formulate the reasons that have been discussed this evening for the refusal, and then once they are formulated, put that back to the members for a vote. Sorry, if I can pass to Sarah.
Yeah. Okay, it's Sarah Claxton from Development Control Team Leader. I think the reasons probably are a bit similar to those which were raised at Almond Street. So I've cobbled together a reason which will go something a bit similar, but a bit like this. In the opinion of the local planning authority, proposed change of use to HIMO would create, by virtue of intensification of the residential use, an unacceptable form of development which would be injurious to residential amenities enjoyed by neighbouring residents and detrimental to character by reason of required additional on-street parking to serve future residents which cannot safely be accommodated with an already congested on-street parking in the highway, which would result in detrimental impact to residential amenities in the wider area. For these reasons, proposal contrary to policy, saved policy GD5, GD5 and H13.
Thank you, Sarah. The only thing I probably would add to that, and obviously you and Ian will know better, is the dormer window being put in there. That's would be out of character with these terrace properties, and would probably involve overlooking into people's gardens backing on from Dairy House Road.
Take advice from Stephen on that, because it wasn't really mentioned so much in the debate. So whether we would be able to put that in, I'll take advice on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's open to members if they think that is a justification, then sort of for a refusal to add it in. Although I suspect, I think the question is from an officer point of view, whether there is justification and whether there is any overlooking. I mean, sort of, that's not, I mean, obviously Chair has mentioned it, but I think a viewpoint from officers on that point needs to be given sort of to members before they accept it as a reason.
Yeah, sorry, Stephen, it wasn't just me. I can't remember whether it was Councillor Pearce or Councillor Bettany mentioned the fact that they were a bit uncomfortable with, small terraced houses having extensions like this.
That was me, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, that's very well as a very general comment, but it doesn't actually deal specifically with whether there's a particular issue with this house and whether it's acceptable or not, and whether there are issues of overlooking, which I think, if officers are, I think you need to take advice on officers on that point, as regards whether they, having inspected the property and given in view of sort of our normal sort of aspects in terms of overlooking, where it really needs to be addressed by officers. I mean, I think you've mentioned that it may be a possibility, but I think it's for officers to give advice on that to members before they can really take that as a reason for refusal.
Okay, then we'll sort of listen.
Chair.
Sorry.
Chair, may I add another point in terms of the layout of the building and the size of the rooms? Although I voted.
Not really, Lucy. We're on to the refusal part here, and then we're just looking for.
Yes, I know, Chair. But
yeah.
I may have voted for it, but I also said that I thought that the design and the layout and the accommodation here was very poor. Right. And I think that the amount of space that we've got in bedrooms 2, 5 and 4 with the amount of light is actually really, really poor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that those living accommodations are not very good.
Yeah.
So you might like to consider that one.
Sorry,
Thank you, Lucy.
Chair, excuse me, it's Stephen Teasdale, legal officer again. Yeah, just to confirm, yes, those were points that Councillor Kerr made. Obviously, she voted in favour of the application, but they were certainly clear points that we recorded that were made in terms of concerns that Lucy had on this application. So if those are points that members would wish to add in, I'm sure that Sarah can add those into any recommendations or any reason for refusal.
Are members happy for that for these comments to be added?
Can I just come back on the dormer extension?
Yes.
Sarah Claxton, Development Control Team Leader. I think in normal circumstances the dormer extension would be permitted development. So we wouldn't have any normal concerns over overlooking, because the relationship is more than we'd normally or we would accept in terms of being 20 metres from the nearest house. So we wouldn't necessarily recommend that amenity from the overlooking from the dormer would be included. Although I'm happy to include something about the layout and creating a poor living environment for the occupants in relation to the bedrooms, if that's what members wish.
That's fine then, Sarah. We'll leave the comments about the dormer out of it then, and are members quite happy to have what Lucy said about the suitability of the accommodation to be added to that?
Absolutely, Chair.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Chair.
Right. Okay. And that's the lines we'll go with then, Sarah.
Chair Stephen Teasdale, legal officer again. So based on what Sarah has proposed as the reason for refusal, together with the addition that Councillor Kerr has proposed in terms of the inadequate amount of communal room space in the property, are you happy to put that, ask for members to move that and second it before we take a vote on that?
Yes, I'm quite happy. Will somebody move it?
I'll move it, Chair.
Seconder?
I'll second it, Chair.
Right. Do we need to take a vote on this, Stephen, or is it acceptable as it is?
I think you need to take a vote on it to make sure.
In that case, Stephen, would you do the honours again, please?
I will do, Chair. Okay, Councillor Bettany, please.
Yes, I vote in favour of that wording.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr.
I'm happy to support that wording as well, but not just the communal area. It's more to do with the size of some of the bedrooms.
Okay, so you support
okay?
that, Councillor Kerr. Thank you. Councillor Carr, please.
Yes, I support that form of wording. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
I support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, please.
Yes, I support that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, please.
Yes, I'm in favour of that, Stephen. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
Yes, Stephen, I'm in favour.
Thank you. Councillor West, please.
Yes, Stephen. Councillor West, I'm in favour of that.
Thank you. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. I'm in favour of those words as well.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chair.
Okay. Mr. Teasdale, your guidance is needed again.
Sorry, Chair, just trying to put on my video back on. Basically, it's we just need to have a volunteer to do any appeal on this.
Right, who would like to be a volunteer before you press count?
Go on, you may as well put me down for it, in for a penny, in for a pound. I'm going to be on one, maybe on for two.
Thank you, Councillor Pegg. You can have a day out. Right, can we, shall we move to the vote then, Stephen?
No, you don't need to vote. That's fine. So if Councillor Pegg has volunteered, that's all we need. So we just need to move to the next item, and I think the last item on the applications.
Okay, the last item is 32 to 39 pages on your document, and it's 105 Whitaker Road, felling of a lime tree, and I think Sarah is going to tell us about that one as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's Sarah Claxton, Development Control Team Leader. Just in terms of housekeeping for this TPO application, members should note there is an error on the items to be considered index for this item, Appendix 1, where it says the recommendation is to grant planning permission, and it's actually to grant TPO consent. So just need to clarify that. Just in terms of the main report, it's an application for a tree preservation order consent to do works to various trees in the front gardens of 103 and 105 Whitaker Road, which are two residential properties. The application is brought to committee because the applicant, or one of the owners of the trees at 103, is Councillor Robin Wood. The proposed works involve removal of a lime tree, crown lifting of 2 yew trees to provide 3 metres clearance above the highway, and a reduction of branches to a coarse compine tree to provide 1.3 metre clearance from the dwelling at number 103. And we've seen there's been one objection to the application on the grounds of loss of immunity and concern about the accuracy of some of the supporting information, but the Council's tree officer is satisfied that the proposed works are acceptable and reasonable and in line with best arboricultural practice. Committee recommends consent be granted, subject to the recommended conditions in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, the only thing I've got to add to that really is I mean, if it inconveniences Councillor Wood, let's plant a few more. Other than that, would anybody like to add?
I'll second that, Chair.
Move to the vote, Chair.
Okay, move to the vote. Can I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, Stephen, would you like to do the honours again?
Here we go then, Chair. Thank you. Councillor Bettany, please.
This is Councillor Paul Bettany. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr, please.
Hi, I'm Councillor Lucy Kerr. I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case and I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, please.
Good evening, Councillor Mike Carr. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case and I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
Evening, Councillor Steve Hassel. I confirm that I've been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce, please.
Councillor Jerry Pearce. I confirm that I have been present throughout this presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case and I vote in favour of the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
Councillor Paul Pegg, I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour.
Thank you. Councillor West, please.
Thanks, Stephen. Councillor Joanna West. I confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations in this case. I vote in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. And finally, yourself, please, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, Councillor Shiraz Khan, I can confirm that I have been present throughout the presentation for this application and I understand the material planning considerations. In this case, I vote in favour.
Thank you. Chair, that's unanimous in favour.
Thank you, Stephen. Right, moving on to item number 8, which is the exciting part where Sarah is going to tell us about potential future site visits.
Thank you, Chair. Sarah Claxton, Development Control Team Leader. There's 3 major applications on the list tonight. The first one, Plot L, Rainsway, Furnock Avenue, is a large unit. It's actually been recently approved under delegated powers, so that one has recently been determined. The second one is the Castle Ward development, phase 2, variation of condition relating to affordable housing units. And the third one is another Castle Ward redevelopment scheme, phase 3. It's a full application for 94 apartments, 4 to 5 storey development on John Street, the site of the current Bustler Market. Anyone's interested?
Thank you.
No, I don't think so.
Not this time, Sarah.
No.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, obviously the one that all of us would, sort of dying to go to was at Rainsway, but you've already approved that, so we're going to sort of sulk and say we're not going to any others today.
Can I just say something, Chair, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed in the delegated decisions that we're going to get another 400 houses on the old Rolls-Royce works on Nightingale Road. I'd just like to say that's extremely welcome news, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
It absolutely is. I'm going to second that, Mike. We've been waiting a long time for this one.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think you've got second, third, fourth, fifth, and up to number 9 on this one. We're all in agreement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right, if that's all, then thank you all very much for attending tonight's meeting, and I can only hope that the next one we have will be in the council chamber, where we can have a proper meeting and see each other face to face. Although some of us might want not to, but you know, we'll see. But thank you very much tonight, and also to members of the public who are watching, and I wish you good night.
Thank
you,
Chair.
Thank you, Chair.